Hey guys, in the last video we talked about galaxies, which are found in space, so I thought why not stick to a space theme and talk about the moon. By the end of this video you should learn a little bit more about the moon, and you'll actually learn how to identify the moon phases by making moon phase cards.
But first, we have to learn a little bit about the moon. So, what is a moon?
A moon is technically any large natural-made object that orbits or travels around a planet. Our moon happens to look like this and is the largest and brightest object in our sky. Well, after the sun, of course. Our moon is super close to Earth compared to other planets. When I say close, it's 240,000 miles away, but that's still really close compared to other moons. This picture shows what Earth looks like from the moon. Pretty small, but actually very close. Now, when you look at the moon in the sky and compare it to the sun during the day, they actually look to be about the same size. But really, the sun is 400 times larger than the moon. I'm going to show you guys some pictures that show the scale of the moon to the Earth and the sun, just so you can kind of understand how big outer space is and how small the moon is compared to everything else. Here is the moon compared to the Earth. The moon is actually a quarter the size of the Earth's diameter, so that means that you could fit 4 moons across the diameter of the Earth. Even though the moon is only a quarter the size of the Earth's diameter, no other planet has a moon as large as ours. That's pretty cool. Now here's a comparison of the Earth to the sun. Pretty small, right? It's just that little tiny dot right there. Did you guys know that over 1.3 million Earths could fit inside the sun? Just think how many moons that would be. And finally, here's a picture comparing all three, the sun, the moon, and the Earth. Can you guys even pick out the moon? It is so small. All right, I think you guys understand the size of the moon now, so let's actually look at the moon. Our moon is covered in craters. Do you guys know what craters are? Craters are just impacts made from meteors and comets hitting the moon. Have you guys ever heard that the moon looks like Swiss cheese? Well, here's a close-up picture of the craters where you can see those impacts and the holes they left behind. There are actually over 500,000 different craters on the surface of the moon. You could say it kind of looks like Swiss cheese. We always see the moon at nighttime, but did you guys know it doesn't actually make its own light? It's actually just reflecting the sun. So moonlight, as we like to call it, is actually sunlight just reflecting on the moon's surface. You may have gone outside at nighttime and looked into the sky and noticed that the moon is changing its shape. But is its shape actually changing? No, the shape of the moon always stays the same. It is always round. It's just the side of the moon that we are seeing that changes. So now let's talk about how the moon orbits around the Earth. It actually takes 27 days for the moon to completely orbit Earth. As it orbits Earth, the moon actually doesn't spin at all. Only one side of the moon is always lit up by the sun. Because the moon does not spin and only one side of the moon is illuminated by the sun, we only see parts of the moon as it makes its orbit around the Earth. Here are the 8 phases that we see as the moon makes its orbit around the Earth. The first phase that we're going to talk about is the new moon. We actually can't see any of the new moon because that is when we see the back half of the moon or the dark side of the moon. Next, if we move counterclockwise, is the waxing crescent. This is when it's just a thin little crescent shape and it opens to the left. Then we have the first quarter. During this phase, it looks like a half a moon, but only the right side of the moon is illuminated. Next, we have the waxing gibbous phase. It means that it's going to be getting bigger and it looks like it's halfway between a half moon and a full moon. And now we have my favorite phase, which is the full moon. That is when the moon is completely illuminated and it's usually very, very bright in the sky. And now the moon is going to appear to get smaller, and this is its waning gibbous phase, which is kind of the opposite of waxing. Next, we have the third quarter phase where it looks like a half moon again, but this time the left side is illuminated. And finally, the last phase is called waning crescent. And this, again, is a thin crescent shape, but this time it is opening to the right, and then the orbit starts all over again with a new moon. Hopefully now you guys have a good understanding of the moon phases, and we are going to move on to our activity, which is making moon phase cards. Alright, so we will be making some moon phase cards, and I've made a set as an example to show you guys already. This is what they look like. Here's just a few of the phases. So at the end of this activity, you guys will have your own moon phase cards to use to take outside and see what phase the moon is in. So here's what you'll need for your supplies. You will need index cards. You'll need 8 of them, 1 for each phase. A pencil if you decide you want to use a pencil. A white crayon. White is very important. A set of watercolor paint and a paintbrush. Water. A paper towel for any mess that you might make, because this is kind of a messy activity. And finally, something you can use to make a circle for the moon. And I'm actually going to use the bottom of this cup for that step. So our first step in making these moon phase cards is you want to make the moon on each card. So I'm going to take my index card, set my cup on the right side because that's where I want my moon to be. And I am going to trace a circle onto my card. Doesn't have to be perfect. You're gonna paint over the top at the end. So I'm gonna do that for all 8 of my cards. Okay, now that that is done, you can go ahead and grab your white crayon. So we are going to start off with the new moon for our first phase. So this is where your pencil can be optional. You can write very lightly new moon and then trace over it with your white crayon, or you can just write it with your white crayon. It's whatever you prefer. I'm going to start by writing new moon very lightly. Makes it easier to trace over. So that is done. You can see it's very light. And then what you want to do is trace over the letters with your white crayon. The reason we're using a white crayon is because when you paint over the crayon, the wax from the crayon actually resists the paint, so it shows up. So do you guys remember what a new moon looks like? You actually can't see a new moon, so this card is done. So next we're going to move on to our next phase. And if you guys remember, the next phase is the waxing crescent. So I'm going to write waxing crescent very lightly. It was a little too dark, so I'm going to start over. Alright, and I'm going to trace those with my white crayon. And now I'm going to draw the waxing crescent phase on my moon, which is a circle right here. And if you guys remember right, a waxing crescent is a thin little crescent that opens up to the left. So I'm going to start in the middle and draw my crescent. And then I'm going to fill it in. So it's kind of hard to see, but if you look very closely, you can see where I drew my crescent. Now I'm gonna speed through these other ones since I already made 2 of them. So you guys can keep moving through your phases and I'll have them up on the screen so you guys know what each phase is. All right, I have all of my cards done, so we're gonna move on to the fun part, which is painting them. So remember, when we use a white crayon, anything that you color with the white crayon will show up, even if you paint over it. So we're gonna start again from the beginning with my new moon card. So I'm gonna put this one down. And remember, you can't see the new moon, so I didn't put any crayon in here. So when I paint over the top of it with my watercolor, only the words should show up. So I'm going to use black for my color. So I'm gonna get the black nice and wet so I can get some color there. You can use whatever color you'd like, but I like to use black because then it looks like nighttime to me. And then you just start painting. You want to cover the whole index card. Do you guys see how the letters are showing up? Alright, so this is where it's important to have a paper towel or something under your index card because it does make a little bit of a mess. But now you can see I have my card done and it kind of likes to fold when it dries, but you can lay it flat when it's dry. So as you can see, just the words showed up. You can't see my moon because I didn't color any of it. So we're gonna do a card where I did color the moon, and that one's gonna be our waxing crescent again. So this time, part of the moon should show up. And if you want to, I'm going to on this card, you can add some stars for some fun. So I'm gonna do that. And you know, there's stars in the sky with the moon. So if you look closely, I added some stars there. All right, so we're gonna paint this one. Alright, so I've got that one done, so I'm just going to let it dry, and then you guys can keep painting your cards until all of them are done, and we'll come right back. Alright, so when you guys are done, you should have a set finish like this, and you can take them outside when it's nighttime and look at the moon and try to figure out what phase it is.
So I know it's a little dark right now and hard to see me, but I decided to bring my moon phase cards home and see what phase the moon is in right now. So I'm gonna flip the camera. It might be a little hard to see with my phone, but we'll see what we got. Okay, so right now it just looks like a big round glowing ball, but I'm gonna tell you guys It's actually half a moon right now, with what we can see is visible on the left side. So I've got my moon phase cards here, so I'm gonna look through them until I find a half a moon on the left side. So here it is. So that means that the moon is in its third quarter stage.
We hope you enjoyed this video and we can't wait for the next one. Thanks, guys.